Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Double Header with Amir Daniels and Ken Costain. In today's episode, I present to you three artifacts: a ticket, a shirt, and a game ball. But they have three things in common: September 10th, 2001. And I want you to keep that in mind throughout this presentation. All right, here we are, episode 12. Can't believe it. I'm excited for this one, although the theme is going to be very somber and hard because doing this is a 9/11 themed episode.
And good job on the intro, Amir, from earlier today. And yes, and you are right. It's going to be a more remembrance episode and a more somber episode for uh for the ones that fought for our country and the ones that we lost during that specific time during our nation's history.
Definitely, and thank you. And just yeah, but I do know two teams had. So no people remember what happened on September the 11th, but people forget what happened on September 10th. But the two teams we cover in our first part of our episode, they'll tell you where they were on September 10th. And we'll but first we gotta start back with the year 2000. Remember anything particular in the year 2000, Keenan?
I was 2 years old, so I mean, I know I have a few childhood memories, and that's about it. So if you want to talk about the year 2000, Y2K
Mm-hmm.
was a big deal. The new millennium. We just got out of the 20th century, but when it comes to NFL football, no, I do not, and I'm sure you have a few things about that when it comes to the year 2000.
Well, matter of fact, they do because for the Broncos and the Giants, they had a very good year 2000. Thanks in part to these two men right here, Mike Anderson for the Broncos and Jim Fossil for the Giants. Mr. Anderson rushed for 1,487 yards and scored 15 touchdowns en route to Offensive Player Rookie of the Year honors and helped Denver win 11 games and return to the playoffs after a 1 year absence. So, way to go to the Broncos.
Yeah, definitely.
And as for the Giants, well, they were coming up off a 7-9 season, hadn't made it to the postseason since '97, and things were looking shaky midway through the 2000 season when they were 7-4 with 5 games remaining. But this man right here, Mr. Jim Fosso, made a guarantee that his team would go to the playoffs, and sure enough, they did. They won the remaining games, won the NFC East, and by season's end, they're holding up the George Halas Trophy, because they whooped the Vikings in the NFC Championship game, 41-0. So that's the good news. But the bad news, as soon as it loads, yeah, the season's ended in humiliation to the Baltimore Ravens. And that name should ring a bell because I heard that Baltimore Ravens defense was one of the best in the NFL.
Yep. And we talked about another team in the Baltimore Ravens in an earlier episode, so I'll put that in the upper right hand corner of your screen now.
Yep. So getting back to their humiliating defeats to the Ravens, the Broncos got whipped 21-3 in the wild card round, and then the Giants in the biggest stage, the Super Bowl, they were cursed off 34-7. So while 2000 was a successful year for them, everyone wants to end their season hosting the Lombardi Trophy, big, which is the big goal for both of these teams entering 2001. But I'd like to redirect your attention to this photo right here of Mr. Anderson. You might notice in the background a 49ers logo. You're probably saying, well, what's so special about that? Well, that was actually their last home game in their old stadium, Mile High, because in 2001, excuse me, they're moving into a new stadium. As you may see here, I recognize this one right here, Keenan.
Uh, I forget what the name of that stadium is, but I do recall the picture of that stadium.
Yeah, it's undergone many names since it opened in 2001, but what we know is today is Empower Field at Mile High. It was called Invesco Field in 2001. And if you read some of these numbers, see a big improvement to that.
Well, let's see. 2000 was the final season. The Broncos, not the Ravens. The Broncos played at Mike Hyde Stadium. In 2001, they moved a new stadium at the time next door in in Fresco Field at Mile High. Now as Empire Field, Empower Field at Mile High today. New stadium had a capacity of 76,125 for football, 132 suites, and a cost of 400 $400.9 million.
Yep. So yeah, and getting back to their old stadium, they had a capacity of 76,273, 77 seats. And at the time when they opened their new stadium, it wouldn't be till April 2002 when Old Mile High would be demolished, hence why it was still featured in the background next door for during the Broncos' first season in Mile High, or in Powerfield Mile High, excuse me. They use the same name. But either way, got a new stadium, new home, and what do you know? You're going to be opening the season on Monday Night Football, so you're going to have an all-star crew there. Guess who's going to be? Look who's going to be there for the opening festivities. Keenan, recognize a familiar face? Two familiar faces for that matter.
Uh, let's see. Al Michael is on the left there, right?
Yep, that's him.
And if I had to take another guess, there's always that one commentator that I don't really remember of. But let's see if I can. Okay, I give up. I don't know the other guy's name.
Well, the guy sitting next to Al Michaels is Dan Fouts, who knows a thing or two about playing at the old Mile High Stadium, given he was the Chargers quarterback from '73 to '87. And the guy on the bottom here, that is Dennis Miller. And yes, the comedian Dennis Miller calling games for Monday Night
Hmm.
Football.
Yep, there's I knew I wasn't gonna get the second guy's name for some odd reason, but I do know Al Michaels for sure. Yep.
Oh yeah, Al Michaels, he knows how to call opening day game or an eventful game. Miracle on Ice, just and Monday Night Miracle, just to name a few. As for Dennis Miller and Dan Fouts, this will be their second year calling Monday Night Football. Dan Fouts, of course, has had experience in the booth doing for ABC and CBS. As for Dennis Miller, I have no idea how he managed to get through 1 year in the booth as part of the Monday Night crew.
And we also did a story with Al Michaels calling the 1995 inaugural season game for Carolina Panthers versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Card in the upper right hand corner of your screen now.
Yeah, that's correct. And also getting back to the Broncos, this is going to be their first game at the new stadium. They're going to bring back some of the old legends. You recognize the guy wearing number 7. Yeah.
Um, John Elway.
Oh, yep. John Elway, he was 3 years removed from playing his last game in the NFL. Also in his picture, Steve Atwater, number 27, Carl Mecklenburg, number 77, Floyd Little, number 44, Dennis Smith, number 49, Billy Thompson, number 36. Who else is there? Haven Moses, number 25. The other guy, blanking out on Lewis Wright, number 20. And most recently, Randy Gardishard, who was just inducted in the Hall of Fame this past August. So definitely going to have a lot of new faces and old faces coming to the news to Invesco Field Mile High, Keenan.
Absolutely. And another side note, we talked about John Elway in episode 2 of our Double Header podcast series. Card in the upper right hand corner of your screen now.
Yep. And I want y'all to pay attention to the time when this game kicked off. And I'll read those aloud. 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Mountain / Denver time. And I want everyone, if you have a pen, paper, or anything to take notes on, take note of that because that's going to be crucial down the road. So we got the new stadium, new season, old faces, but new places. Who's ready for some football?
Hey.
Same here. So let's get to the game. And before I begin, who do you think's going to score the first touchdown at Vesco Field, Keenan?
um. Hmm. Well, I did not do research before coming on here today, but uh, gosh, if I had to guess, maybe Denver would probably strike first.
I would agree with that. I mean, this is their first game in their home stadium, so someone wearing a Broncos uniform is going to do it. If I had to take a guess who that is, I would go with Terrell Davis because this is his first game back after our injury riddled 2000 season. Excuse me.
Yeah, and I heard of Terrell Davis as well, so that name does ring a bell for me. So,
Oh yeah.
I would have to I would have to agree as well. So, without further ado, let's see what happens.
All right. So who scored the first touchdown in Vesco Field Mile High? All right. So we were both right. We knew it was going to be someone from the Broncos, but it's actually tight end Jeb Putzier. Or no, excuse me, Patrick Hape. Excuse me, not Jeb Putzier. Yeah, Patrick Hape.
I'm sorry.
He's the
Uh,
answer.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
Tight end Patrick Hape. He's the one. He's answered that trivia question. Who scored the first touchdown or official touchdown at Vesco Field Mile High?
Mm, okay.
Yeah, he scored on a 1 yard pass from Brian Priest in the Broncos' first possession, which ironically ended in a Patrick Hape reverse that went nowhere, but they redeemed themselves the following possession. So first points of the game go to the home team. But the visiting team, the Giants, well, they said, hey, we got a high power offense of our own. And the Mighty Tuna found the end zone one possession later to tie the game at 7 apiece. All right, this first game a mile high. Oh, boy, it's getting exciting.
Hmm.
And then the next guy you might want to pull up, you should recognize the name or the last name, Mr. Ed McCaffrey. He broke the tie on the Broncos' following possession to give them a 14-7 halftime lead. So looks good. So far, so good for the home team.
Is he related to Christian McCaffrey?
That is right. Yep, that's his father, Ed. Yeah, Christian was around our age at the time of this broadcast. Yep.
Yep.
But getting back to Mr. McCaffrey, he would unfortunately leave the contest with a compound leg fracture, which would end his season. And but either way, he was able to get in the end zone, a 16-yard reception. So, and 14-7 Denver going into halftime. So, got to be feeling good for your home team or home fans. You're saying, all right, so far so good.
Hmm. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate for Mr. Ed,
Oh yeah,
but
Mr. Ed, unfortunately, yeah, that was. But either way, still,
yeah.
he was coming up for a very good 2000 season, and got to a very good start in this game, but sadly, he didn't couldn't build off of that 2000 season.
But going back real quick, I did a quick Google search on how old Christian McCaffrey is. It says here he is 28 years old as of the time of this recording. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he would have been 28. He's 28 now. I'm trying to do some quick math in my head. One that is 23 years ago, so he would have been.
about 2 or 3, maybe. I would say at least 3 because no. If it's 2001, if he was born in '96, he would have been four and a half,
Uh,
5 years old.
yeah, because I know there was a picture of him at a young kid at the Broncos' second Super Bowl win. So yeah, he was about 4 or 5 years old at the time. As for getting mad for the Giants, got the defense, held them on the first drive, but then gave up two scores. But as for the offense, you know, you, you get a touchdown, two touchdowns, two scores, take the lead. So it's like it's still anybody's ball game at halftime.
Yeah, for sure. So if it's anybody's game, then what happens next?
Well, given that it was a back and forth first half, I say it continues in the second half with Denver winning on a last second field goal, 31-28.
Hmm, I don't disagree with that at all.
You know what? All right, let's see how the second half plays out. All right, I see Mr. Toomer again, and according to what I read, you scored another touchdown, albeit highly controversial according to the ABC footage because it looked like you stepped out of bounds, but it's just going to be crazy. They had replacement referees, and somehow, some way, they saw something different from people at home. They ruled it a touchdown. So, all right, tied up at 14 apiece. So far, so good. But now we got two Broncos. Mr. Mike Anderson, I see you again, and then legend Rod Smith. So what's going on with this? Okay, yep. So as I mentioned before, Toomer scored his second touchdown in the game, 11 yards out to cap off the drive. So game tied at 14. Then Mr. Rod Smith, who came broke the tie on a 25-yard pass from Greasy, get Denver the lead. And if you read here, that point forward, game belonged to the home team as they outscored the Giants 17-6 from that point out. They won 31-20. So that was got got the Broncos score right, how many points they would score.
Hmm.
Yep. So Rod Smith, who caught the touchdown on the same possession McCaffrey got injured, he broke that scoring that tie, and then Anderson put the game out of reach with a touchdown run late in the fourth quarter, with the Giants scoring late on Marcellus Rivers touchdown pass or touchdown reception. So they scored 31-20, but the extra point blocked. But the final score is not the main storyline here. It's the time, and I like to read those out loud. So when this game ended at 12:18 Eastern Standard Time, because this game ended at 12:18 Eastern Standard Time, 10:18 Mountain Time. Again, and keep in mind because this Monday night game started real late back then. Like today they started at 8:20. Back then it was 9 o'clock. So remember they would end and be well after midnight.
Yeah, it's like waiting for an NBA 10:30 game to start, but I think recently they switched to like 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, 10 o'clock, somewhere around there. So that it kind of reminds me of that. So uh, is is that the real reason why it ended so late because of the way they started the game?
Well, not yes and no. I mean, yeah, because it was going to end like of course they had the booth reviews. I have to go to commercial after every score, and then of course, and also again, kickoff time was 9 o'clock east here in the east, and 7 o'clock in Denver, and then but the main reason I'm bringing that up is going to it's going to play back during our last slide because and also time's going to play back during this one as well because Denver, I mean, enjoy the victory. You earned it. Way to way to christen your new stadium. But, you know, got to remember, short week. So you're going to be going on the road to Indianapolis. So I pull that up right now. And that's going to be 1 o'clock in the East, 12 o'clock Denver time. I circle these dates. That's my ability. And as for the Giants, you also got a short week. So you're going back home, Lion East, to take on the Packers, who I read had a dominating win against the Lions at home. And then, speaking of which, I know the fans in New York are looking for a victory because I heard the Colts dominated the Jets at Giants Stadium the day before. And I want to keep close attention to the date and time as well, once again, because that was both of those games are expected to kick off at 1 o'clock this Sunday, September 16th at 1 p.m. on CBS and Fox. But unfortunately, that would not be the case. because now we get to that ordinary morning at Newark. Have you ever been to an airport, Keenan?
Uh, I don't think so. I can't really recall at the moment if I have or not. But to answer your question right now at this very moment, I I think so actually. So maybe for right now. So maybe after the show I can tell
Well, I've been to airports several times. As a matter of fact, I've been to Newark twice. Most recently, just came back. Who was there to get to and from Portugal? Either way, just whenever you go to an airport, of course, you're going to see a lot of people coming to and from their flights.
you. Yes, yes.
Airports are
I
very
think I
busy.
think I have. Yes.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So, but the Giants' trip to Newark will be, well, going to be one they're going to remember much remember than they think. So here we are. So it's 6 a.m. They fly 3 hours. Oh, excuse me. That would have been a 6 hour flight from Denver to Newark. So they land back there 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So obviously, they're tired, a little bit jet lagged, but of course, the players get a day's rest to recuperate. As for the coaches and front office, they got to start, getting their game plan ready for the Packers. But on their way from the airport, they park next to a plane with the that's with its call number, not call number. Excuse me.
Serial number.
Yeah, serial number with N591 UA, which is part the Gate 17, and that's going to depart for San Francisco, California at 8:42 Eastern Standard Time. And you're probably wondering, okay, yeah, so what? It's nothing normal there. I mean, planes are parked there all the time, going about to depart to the next place. And heck, I mean, I bet the people boarding that plane were saying, "Hey, we get to see the Giants. We'll be talking about this years from now. How often do you get to see sports legends at the airport or anywhere for that matter?"
It's pretty rare if you think about it, but when it comes to football players, especially because they get their own private jets or heck, private stations for the airplane.
Hmm. But unfortunately, this plane is not going to reach its destination. Unbeknownst to everybody at that airport, we got four passengers aboard, and they're carrying out a secret mission. And at 2 hours' time, that mission's going to be going to make headlines around the world, starting with the two towers you see right here. The Hudson River at West Street, or across the Hudson River at West Street at 8:37 a.m. And as a result, things are going to change for the NFL and everyone else, and that'll play a factor in their next segment.
You're listening to Double Header. Be sure to like and subscribe. All right, folks. So welcome back, Amir. Like you said, it was a devastating situation for everyone involved and for the New York Giants organization coming back from their flight from Denver after a devastating loss in the Colorado state.
Yeah, it was, and as I before I closed it out, you saw the image of the twin towers, which when they landed at the time, they got to see it on what they didn't know at the time for the last time because it being at 8:37 a.m. That's when the events made it. That's when the first plane hit, and then before you know it, second plane hits, and it goes from accident to sudden delivered, and that's where it the world changed at that moment.
Absolutely. And Amir, let me ask you this. This is a little off topic of what we're going to talk about, but I mean, Yeah, it's a little off topic, but what do you remember from the 9/11 attacks, if you do have, some memories of that. Do you remember anything from that fateful day?
I do not, 'cause I was 3 at the time, but I do recall asking my mother, like, where I was, and she said I was at daycare, and she had to pick me up early because that once everything came clear that this was not an accident, it was deliberate, and, so she picked me up, took me back home. As for my dad, he was actually in Pennsylvania on the way back, and he actually drove past the city and saw the towers, smoke coming out from the twin towers. I mean, one thing I'll never forget is him telling me he had tears in his eyes because he grew up in New York and he was there when they built it, saw and was there when from the time they were built and to the day they came down.
Yeah, so, that's really sad to hear, and, um, glad you were able to share some of that with our audience here and our audience on the Spotify, and, well, as for me, I was, also, about Mm, I was about 3 years old, around the same age as you, and, me being born in December, you in November, but I don't remember much of it. I just remember I think my mom was just watching it on this evening just to see, what went down and, yeah, and just doing research on it years later just to hear more about it is, quite tragic for sure. Sorry I don't have a more specific or descriptive story for you, but that's what I can recall from that. So yeah, with that, um, may our thoughts and prayers be with everyone who sacrificed for the country, our country, and everyone who was involved in that fateful day. So I just wanted to throw that out there before we get started.
Definitely.
So. So with this game right here, the game after 9/11, so we're going to talk about what happened previously between these two teams, and as we all know, the Giants played a role in our, and this is their first home game. But we'll get to that in a minute. So previously, what happened to the Giants the week before? They played at the Arrowhead Stadium against Kansas City, and they had the quarterback Kerry Collins to their far right and Aaron Brooks to the left here. So Kerry Collins 20 for 34, 208 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and Ron Dane 16 carries, 46 yards, 1 touchdown, and the longest being 11. His longest being 11 on the day. Sean Williams was able to get interception for a touchback. Giants defense held the Chiefs to 266, 40 yards of offense the entire game. So let's take it one at a time, Amir. So what do you think about the Giants stats against Kansas City?
Yeah, because again, this is their again. So all the games I mentioned before, they were supposed to play Green Bay second week of the season. Denver was supposed to play Indianapolis, but due to the attacks, those games got pushed back to a later time. As for this game, Giants were playing with a heavy heart. This hit their sit. The attacks, took place in New York. They saw this unfold in real time. And while their offense didn't have a impressive show, I will say their defense bounced back after giving up 31 points and 473 yards to the Broncos, hold the Chiefs to a field goal and under 260 yards. An impressive turnaround. That's given the circumstances.
Yeah, that's a perfect summarization there. So when it comes to the Saints here, they finished with a record of 10-6 in the year 2000. New Orleans were able to make their first playoff game with a win over the Rams, 31-28. And with that, the New Orleans lost the following week to the Minnesota Vikings, 34-16, after making that playoff berth. And going into 2001, they were looking to build off a successful season in 2000. And 2001, they got off to a good start, being Buffalo Bills and Buffalo, New York. But however, they were supposed to play the San Francisco 49ers at home, but it was pushed back a week due to the September 11th attacks. So Amir, the Saints side, what do you see, and what can you pick out of when it comes to these points here?
So yeah, the Saints, they coming into the new millennium, they were in the midst of a 7-year playoff drought. The low point coming in '99 with Mike Ditka going 3-13. So everyone in that coaching staff was released, and they brought in Jim Haslett, re- helped rejuvenate the franchise, get into the playoffs for the first time in 7 years, and then leading to something they never done before, the first ever playoff win against the defending champion Rams. So of course, going to 2001, they're looking to build off of that and got to a very good start with 24-6 win at Buffalo in their season opener. And then after that, of course, the attacks happened. Their game extension was pushed back to the last week of the regular season, and they had a bye, so they basically had 2 weeks off to prepare for this game against the Giants.
Yeah, so that's a good point. They were able to get rested up, and despite what happened, during the 9/11 attacks, and they it was sort of like a 5-week scenario, but for all the wrong reasons. So, um,
Hmm.
but they were able to get themselves prepared and able to reflect on what happened that fateful day. So, moving forward, we have a matchup between the New York Giants and the excuse me, New Orleans Saints, excuse me. And the and I want to take a look at their records real fast. So 12-4 was New York, and the Saints were a 10-6, kind of like what I mentioned earlier in the previous slide. So get the logos here, and before we jump right into it again, so Mir brought this up a little bit doing his story of his remembrance of the 9/11 attack. So this matchup is the first matchup that takes place after the September 11th attack. The Twin Towers in the Pentagon, and I forgot the other part. What was
Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
in Saintsville, Pennsylvania, and I totally forgot to add that last part in. So sorry about that, folks. So no games were played on September 16th and 17th due to coaches and players wanted to spend time with family in the wake of 9/11 attacks. And I'm glad that the NFL was able to recognize that. They were able to say, hey, this is a big deal. Do what you got to do. Be with your loved ones. Because you don't, because you never know what's happening behind closed doors, and behind the scenes of these players. And they're all human and they all have a job to do. And yet they have a family to take care of and family to spend time with.
Definitely.
So during their unofficial bye week, like I mentioned, the Giants were able to help out with the relief efforts in New York. With this, the NYPD and the FNDY, so the police department and the fire department were invited to a Giant home game on September 30th during pregame ceremonies. So with that, I just want to give a quick shout out to the NYPD police department and the fire department as well that were invited to the Giants home game on September 30th during the pregame ceremony. So Amir, you got anything else to say before we jump right in just to see what happens?
No, no, just I do know again, you know, you hit it right. You touched on everything, how the attacks, the impact on the players and the coaches, and then the Giants honored the FDNY and NYPD at their first home game of the season after the attack that was the right call. They they were they put their lives put themselves in danger to save others.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I got nothing else on my end, like you said, and thank you for sharing that information, Amir. And without further ado, off we go. So, just like any other NFL game, hey, fans are excited. I'm excited. So off we go in East Weatherford. Giants got off to a quick lead, 14-0, already with Ron Dane, if I'm saying that correctly.
Hmm.
Yep, scoring on a six play, 81-yard drive. And Tiki Barber, 5 plays, 51-yard drive in the second quarter after a 0-0 first quarter. So nothing really took place in the first quarter there. John Carney kicked the 32-yard field goal at the end of the first half. So the Saints had a 91 yards in the first half, and Giants had a total offense of 119, most off scoring drives. So, hey, so far so good.
Yeah, I mean, of course, give me a little bit of rust from the Saints. They hadn't played in 2 weeks. That being said, I mean, when I read they did have issues with penalties, hence why, because the number one drive they had 13 plays, only 30 yards. So and so that's why they only had 91 total yards in that half. It also due a large part to a Giants defense that was still not picked up right where they left off against Kansas City. So I read that Michael Strahan also had 3 sacks in this game, and he was on his way to a record-breaking season. As for the offense, running the ball was a big part of Jim Bossel's philosophy, and they showed here with Rondé and Tiki Barber. And also, it was actually raining that day too in East Weatherford, so definitely running game is going to play a big factor in the second quarter.
Yeah, that's a good point. I did not put that in the slides at all during this presentation here. But that's a good point to keep in mind, folks. That it was a rainy day in East Rutherford, and you know things could play a factor. So with that, I just want to go over the stats one more time before we proceed. So the Saints had 91 yards in the first half. So keep that stat in mind. The Giants had 119 of total offense, most off scoring drives. So I just want to reiterate that before we move on. So,
Mhm.
so with that, second half begins. The Saints outscored the Giants 10-7. 32-yard pass caught by Willie Jackson of New Orleans. So the Giants were able to extend their lead off of Kerry Collins to Joe Genevis, if I'm saying it right.
Jared Vicious.
Uh, Genevis,
Jared Vicious.
Jeravissus, yeah, that's a little bit of a tongue twister. Jeravissus, yeah, there we go. Connected on a 46-yard play for a touchdown. One drive later, the Saints were able to cut down the lead thanks to John Carney on a 30-yard field goal attempt. Giants had a chance to run out the clock on the next position. However, Collins was stripped by Kevin Mathis and teammate Joe Johnson recovered the ball at the Saints' 32-yard line with 3:22 left in the regulation. So, like you said, Amir, a lot of penalties against New Orleans. Not really transpired in the first and third quarters of this at
Mhm.
all, if not ever.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, this scoreless first quarter, scoring in the second, no scores in the third, and then things heated back up in the fourth. And I feel like a lot of missed opportunities as well because Giants could have had a chance to extend their lead in the third quarter, and the Saints could have had a chance to take the lead. They're only down by 2 scores. Again, the penalties. Saints had 14 for 192, and the Giants had 10. But then the big thing was, I heard Cherry Collins had a record-setting season for all the wrong reasons. Because he had, I don't know, for whatever reason, problem holding on to the ball, and it was showcased here on their last possession where they're trying to run out the clock when he got stripped, and that gave the Saints some life. And as I'm reading here, they made it to the 9 yard line of the Giants.
Yep, and hold on, folks, we're not quite done yet. So, final chance, right?
Hmm.
Brooks drops back from the 9-yard line, looking, finds Willie Jackson for the touchdown, and
Oh,
wait a
hang
minute.
on.
I hear something. Oh, I hear some whistles on the play. Oh, no. Pass interference, number 88, New Orleans, for pushing the defender. A legal touch of the pass, number 88, New Orleans. Touchdown does not count. Game over. So, Giants were able to hang on.
Yeah, yeah, and what you guys can't see, because there isn't a full. Like, I know that the only highlights I have of this game is from the NFL prime time, and on this play, Willie Jackson stepped out of bounds, then came back in, which is illegal, and then in the process, he pushed the Giants defender out of the way to catch the ball, then did a premature celebration, which Tom Jackson, no relation to Willie, called out during the highlight reel on me on NFL primetime. He said it best: if you're going to commit, if you're going to hit one foul, might as well commit them all. And you know what you did, put that premature celebration. And yeah, Willie Jackson knew, like, hey, you know what? I might as well just celebrate now because it's not going to count.
Might as well enjoy your moment while you can, even though you didn't get it right.
Right.
But with that, that did not count. Game over. Giants win. What was it? What was the final score of that game, Amir?
21-13.
21-13. So, and again, I wish I had this during the slide. So again, my apologies. So with that, post game show is here. Saints and Giants stats. So the Saints, Aaron Brooks, 28 for 54, 291 yards, an average of 5.4, one touchdown, one interception. Okay, Ricky Williams, running back, 16 carries, 53 yards, average 3.3, zero touchdowns, and the longest of the day for him, 16 yards. Willie Jackson, receiver, 8 receptions, 105 yards, average 13.1, one touchdown, and then the longest of the day was 32 yards. So Amir, looking at these stats here, it's pretty odd just to see, that many pass attempts, even though, uh, uh, despite being 21-13 being the final score of this game.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause unfortunately the Saints did have, well, they were behind. They weren't necessarily down by say three scores or anything like that. Most of their down was like two touchdowns, and it just part of the reason why they had to throw the ball so much. They were facing a lot of third and longs due to penalties, so obviously couldn't utilize Ricky Williams as well as they would have liked. And then the Giants did take advantage of that because Michael Sherman, as I mentioned before, had a trifecta or three sacks in the game. And as for Willie Jackson, very good day in the stat sheet with the leading catching a pass for 105 yards and a touchdown. But fortunately, he we best remember for the touchdown that didn't count, which cost the Saints the game because had they scored that touchdown, they also had to go for the 2-point conversion, force overtime.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So with the Giants here, Kerry Collins, 9 for 18, 135 yards, average of 7.5, one touchdown, one interception. And he was still sacked 5 times for 35 yards and an average of 93, excuse me. So sacked 5 times despite getting it done. That doesn't seem right to me. So do you, Amir, do you have information why Kerry Collins got sacked 5 times?
Well, yeah, people forget the Saints had a very talented defense. They had LaVoy Glover, Sammy Knight, John Hamm, just name a few on that defense, and they end up would lead NFL in sacks that year with 60, and they got five there. So Saints defense definitely kept them in this game. And then getting to the Giants, I mean, very good day running the ball because Ron Dane led the way with 111 yards on 19 carries. Tiki Barber was amazing, only had 21 yards rushing. Given he was, when we think of the Giants that era, we think more of him than Ron Dane. But that being said, I know the last two games for Kerry Collins has been shaky with the three picks the week before in Kansas City, and then only completing 9 passes for buck 35 against the Saints. And while it's good early on, you want to pick up that pace as the season progresses. So while two wins, that Giants offense will be saying we can do better than this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, hey, they still got it done nonetheless, right?
Oh, definitely.
So with that, you got anything else to add before we end this presentation?
Yeah, I will say these two and also with the Broncos, they all would end up missing the playoffs. They were both in the race at the beginning of December. I know the Saints were 7-5 going into December, but then they lost their last four and ended the year with 7-9. New York, they did hit a slump, hence why due large part to a lot of turnovers on offense, and they were 4-7 going after the Thanksgiving weekend, but they really went three in a row. But unfortunately, they lost their last two. And for Denver, they had an up and down season and was finished the year 8-8 and out of the playoffs. So again, both talented teams, but just they had picked the wrong times to hit slumps, which ultimately cost them any chances of them getting to the playoffs.
Yeah. So with that, that'll be the end of my presentation. And Amir, I couldn't agree more there. And you just gotta, you know, hit your strides at the right time. And if you don't, you're gonna be playing catch up the rest of the way.
Definitely. And getting back to the main subject of of this presentation with 9/11, it's just I mean, it shows you how it's impacted not just normal citizens who were living in New York, uh, DC, and Shanksville, but also the people playing sports. In this case, the NFL, because again, as I showed you earlier, the original schedule that came out in April 2001. Giants supposed to play Green Bay in second week of the season, and and Denver's supposed to go out to Indianapolis, and Saints were supposed to welcome the 49ers, but then 9/11 happened and everything had to get pushed back. And one person we didn't give a shout out to or to mention was Paul Tagliabue because he was in New York at the time, had some connections to people at the World Trade Center and Pentagon, so he knew right away that this is going to be that this could people weren't ready to return to sports, and he made the right call by canceling all the games that week and pushing it back to week 17. So I'll tell you, he made the right call there.
I would definitely agree on that. And and that was a big bullet point in my on my part of my story is that all the games that was supposed to be there got pushed back to week 17. And NFL made the right decision. The commissioner made that right decision, and it seems all the fans, around the globe were able to understand what was going on. And like I said, for the people involved during this tragedy is such it's heartbreaking to hear about, and it's heartbreaking to even watch some of this footage even go down because there's footage of this out there on the internet that people can watch and reminisce and learn about, kind of like what Amir and I have done over the past few years. Uh, uh, learning it from such a young age and learning it throughout our time in school and what have you. So
Yeah, it's one thing I've learned with 9/11. You just think you know everything about it, and then you read another person or hear about their story of what happened to them that day or where they were, and just the Giants one just stands out so much because then they played. People talk about the day of 9/11, but then we forget what happens the day before because they had a game that night. They lost, came back. It was just like a normal go plane trip. You get off the plane, walk by some people, they see some players, they may talk about it years from now. But in this case, that they couldn't. The people they walked past wouldn't take another breath. So I'm not even remember T. Barber mentioning that documentary. You know, unbeknownst to them, there were 4 passengers on that plane carrying out a mission, and we saw by the day's end those 2 towers across the pond across the Hudson River, they would be reduced to rubble. And the people on that plane, that plane would not reach San Francisco, but unfortunately make impact in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It's
Yeah.
and just it was yeah. Just when they mentioned that, I was like, man, it's like they not only they saw it in real time, but they walked past the people who died and who committed these attacks. Just eerie feeling when Shiki mentioned that in that interview.
Yeah. And if anyone want to watch the documentary, where can they find that, Amir? If they're interested.
It's available on YouTube and also on NFL Plus, so definitely check it out when you get the chance. And there's also plenty of articles about this event. And one more thing before we sign off, this is about Ed McCaffrey, who unfortunately injured his leg in that Giants game. He was actually in the hospital when he first learned about the attacks, and of course, he couldn't get any family to come in because that after once everything became realized this was not a accident. All the airports shut down, so therefore he had to spend a few hours alone in the hospital, recuperating from a compound fracture. So it just then puts a lot of things into perspective.
Yeah, that's a good point to leave off on for sure. And folks, um, we were like I said before, we'll be thinking about the people who were involved, and you know since today being September 11th, 2024, it's going to be the 23rd, 23rd year of the attack of on 9/11 that took place in New York and Pennsylvania, and all the other states that were involved. You know, and our thoughts and prayers are with them and the people that were involved during that tragedy, like I said before, and their thoughts and prayers be with them.
Definitely, as they say, we remember.
We remember indeed. So folks, if you like what you see, feel free to give us a like, subscribe for more, hit that notification bell. Feel free to uh, check us out on Spotify at Double Header Podcast, Instagram Double Header 97, and check out our website for more information. And with that, this has been Nina Costain, Amir Daniels. We'll see you guys next time.
See y'all next time.